So the freedom model for addiction puts the emphasis on the fact that nothing else but our own mind, which means ourselves, is creating our desire for PMO, right? And me, I am starting to realize how, more or less consciously, I always had this belief that my desire for PMO was biologically driven. Basically, I thought that as a human being, especially as a man, the sex drive will be super strong for biological reasons, so that you want to procreate with a woman. And more or less consciously, again, I believe that for a huge part, this was the belief that was driving me towards PMO, right? So I believe that it is an important idea to very carefully think about in order to determine if it's really true or not. If my desire to PMO really comes from this natural biological state, and that basically it can never change as long as I'm a human. But I started to have a few thoughts that I want to share that kind of contradict this idea that the desire for PMO is biologically driven. So, for instance, right, if you look at a woman's back, or like legs and ass, like I would get aroused by such a view, and I would think, yeah, it's normal that I'm aroused by such a view. It's my biology that's indicating to me that I should procreate with that woman so that the human species can continue existing, basically. But then I realized how the arousal I was feeling when looking at a woman's back, like naked or in sexy underwear in the adult movies, I realized how this view would bring me a similar amount of pleasure to a blowjob scene, for instance. And what kind of biological value could there be for me to find a blowjob scene sexually triggering, right? When you think about it, it's a woman's face and mouth and a man's private part. So why is such a view, like, it makes no sense that me finding such a view hot would be biologically driven, because this has no link whatsoever with procreation, right? Or for instance, another fetish, which is the dirty talking. I noticed how I would enjoy in the adult movies when there was some dirty talking. But what is even the biological function of dirty talking? There is none, right? How does dirty talking help in any way the species to continue if we look at it from the theory of evolution, right? So this shows how something that arouse me and probably many other people, they are not linked with the biological function of procreation. They are just linked with some ideas that we have in our mind. Because, like, dirty talking, what's even the biological function? You know? Or why is it that sometimes, actually, quite most of the time, I find a woman in sexy underwear more pleasant to look at than a completely nude woman? If the visual pleasure of nudity was linked with this biological function of procreation, if looking at a woman's body would be pleasurable only because it's gonna make you want to procreate, then shouldn't I find the completely nude woman more attractive than the woman in underwear? So this shows that because I view sexy underwear as sexy, I am more turned on because I have these association of ideas that occur in my head. But basically this shows how it's, my mind that's finding this hot. And so I am starting more and more to see how my fetishes and my liking of PMO is not really linked with this idea of procreating, even subconsciously. And it's quite a bit of a change of perspective for me personally. Because I think it was yesterday that I realized that I started to be like, wow, so I'm really not looking at PMO and enjoying it for biological reasons, huh? And then immediately I was like, but then why? And I think that this is where the freedom model is trying to lead us to destructing all these false beliefs that we have that are driving us towards PMO, so that we are finally faced with the fact that it's our mind, our ideas, our beliefs that make us find PMO attractive. For instance, I might have this association of ideas that something vulgar and taboo is hot because maybe throughout my whole life, as a kid growing up in a family where sex was a bit taboo, you know, you start to make this association of ideas that sex is a bit dirty, a bit taboo, and so now what you will find hot is the things that are a bit dirty and a bit taboo. And this could explain why I can find some dirty talking hot. But if I keep the biological viewpoint, it makes no sense, does it? So, yes, I feel like thanks to this questioning that PMO was not driven by biology but by my mental vision of PMO. I believe that I'm currently really devaluing the PMO, but I cannot say yet that I am free of it, because let's wait a few days and see. But yes, this questioning that PMO is biological is like kind of a main step that I reached, I believe. Because it was an idea that was keeping me stuck. Like one of the ideas. Maybe I will have other myths to debunk until I can clearly see what my desire for PMO is. Like, where does it come from? If God wills. So, yeah, we struggle with beliefs. So, let's try to identify all the beliefs that we have surrounding PMO and then looking at them and being like, okay, is it really true? You know?